It's Christmas, and there you are in the middle of a room full of family members, listening to conversations that echo around you like distant and familiar noise. There's laughter, there are hugs, there's that sense of human warmth that should fill something inside you. But there's also something deeper, something Albert Camus knew well when he wrote about the human condition. You can be surrounded by people and still feel an immense emptiness, a distance that seems insurmountable. It's as if you were a spectator of your own life, observing connection rituals in which you participate, but to which you don't completely belong. This feeling is not your fault nor your weakness. It is, perhaps, one of the most human experiences that exist. Recognizing that even in moments of greatest physical proximity, our souls can remain profoundly lonely. Have you ever noticed how in family gatherings there exists a kind of collective theater, where everyone interprets expected versions of themselves? You are the child who came back home, the older brother, the beloved granddaughter, the successful cousin. Each one carries their role like a well-fitted mask, and underneath it, there's a real person, complex, full of contradictions and questions that rarely find space to exist in that environment. Camus would understand this performance. He spoke about the absurd of existence, about how we constantly live trying to make sense of a world that remains silent before our deepest questions. And perhaps there's no place where this becomes more evident than at a Christmas table, where everyone pretends they know each other completely, when in reality each one is a particular universe, inaccessible and mysterious. Family is, by definition, the place where we're supposedly understood without needing to explain who we are. It's where our story began, where we were shaped by the first impressions of love, pain, expectation, and disappointment. But it's also where, paradoxically, we can feel most misunderstood. Because family knows us, yes, but often knows only old versions of ourselves, versions that may have ceased to exist long ago. They remember the shy boy you were at 10 years old, but can't see the questioning adult you've become. They recognize the obedient daughter from before, but not the independent and complex woman you are today. And in this mismatch between who you were and who you are, a peculiar loneliness is born, a loneliness that can only be felt amidst the family crowd. Camus teaches us that the absurd is not a condition we should resolve, but rather recognize and accept. Applying this philosophy to family dynamics, perhaps we can understand that the distance we feel is not something that needs to be eliminated at any cost. Perhaps it is, actually, a natural condition of human existence. We are fundamentally solitary beings, and not even blood ties can completely dissolve this loneliness. This is not tragic, it's simply real. And there's a strange freedom in accepting this reality instead of fighting against it or feeling guilty about it. When you're sitting at that table, listening to conversations about people you don't know well, about events you didn't live, about perspectives you don't share, you don't need to force yourself to connect in an artificial way. You can simply be present, observe, feel the strangeness of the situation without judging it as right or wrong. It's as if you were an anthropologist studying a tribe you're part of, but whose culture sometimes seems completely foreign to you. And that's okay. Yeah, it's part of the human condition, this feeling of being simultaneously insider and outsider, of belonging and not belonging, of being at home and at the same time feeling like a visitor in your own life. The revolt that Camus spoke about doesn't need to be an external dramatic revolt full of conflicts and family ruptures. It can be a silent and internal revolt, the decision to be authentically yourself, even if that means not fitting perfectly into the role they expect from you. It can be the courage to accept that you've changed, that you've evolved, that you've become someone your family members may not yet know completely. And it's okay if they take time to know this new version of you. It's okay if some never get to know it completely. You don't exist to satisfy others' expectations, not even those of your family. You exist to live your own life, with all the complexity and contradiction that this implies. There's something profoundly liberating in understanding that you don't need to be understood by everyone to have value. The loneliness you feel is not evidence that there's something wrong with you or your family. It's simply evidence that you are a conscious human being, capable of reflection, questioning, and growth. And these characteristics, by their very nature, sometimes put us in dissonance with our environment. This is not a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be lived with dignity and authenticity. Think about how many times you've caught yourself simulating interest in conversations that mean nothing to you, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, agreeing with opinions you don't share, all to maintain a superficial harmony. Camus would say this is a form of bad faith, a denial of one's own authenticity in the name of a social peace that is, at bottom, illusory, because true peace cannot be built on falsehoods, and true connection cannot be based on performances. If you feel the need to hide who you really are to be accepted, then the acceptance you're receiving is not really yours, it's from the character you're playing. But recognizing this dynamic doesn't necessarily mean breaking it abruptly or aggressively. It means, first of all, recognizing it within yourself, accepting that it exists, and then consciously choosing how to respond to it. You can choose moments of genuine authenticity, small gestures of honesty that don't cause unnecessary conflicts, but that also don't deny who you are. It can be as simple as expressing a different opinion respectfully, or sharing something about your current life that reveals an aspect of your personality they might not have known. Let me ask you something that might resonate deeply with you. Have you ever felt like a foreigner in your own family? Have you ever had the feeling that, even surrounded by people who love you, there's a part of you that remains completely invisible and misunderstood? If you've been through this, if this experience is part of your life, leave a simple comment. I feel this too. Because sometimes knowing we're not alone in this experience is already a first step toward understanding it better. Your response can help other people feel less isolated in their own journeys of self-discovery and family acceptance. You're not alone in this, and your experience, however unique it may seem, echoes in the lives of many other people who also navigate between the need to belong and the desire to be authentically themselves. Family, with all its complexities and contradictions, is a microcosm of the human condition. It's where we learn our first lessons about love and rejection, about acceptance and judgment, about belonging and exclusion. But it's also where we often face our first existential conflicts, the perception that we're different from others, that our thoughts and feelings don't always find echo in our surrounding environment, that growing up means, inevitably, distancing ourselves from some of the people who love us most. And this is not necessarily a tragedy. It is actually a sign that we're becoming autonomous individuals, capable of independent thought and conscious choices. Camus spoke about the importance of living passionately, even in the face of the absurd of existence. Applying this to family relationships, perhaps this means loving your family not despite your differences and distances, but including these differences and distances as part of love. Perhaps it means accepting that you can love people who don't completely understand who you are, and that they can love you even without knowing all aspects of your personality. Family love doesn't need to be based on total understanding or absolute agreement. It can be based on mutual recognition of shared humanity, on accepting that we're all complex beings in constant evolution, trying to find our way in a world that doesn't always make sense. The distance you feel is not necessarily a problem to be solved, but perhaps a condition to be accepted and even valued. It can be a sign that you're growing, questioning, evolving. It can be evidence that you're not settling for easy answers or automatic conformity. It can be proof that you're developing your own voice, your own perspective, your own way of being in the world. And all of this is valuable, even if it's sometimes lonely. There are moments when loneliness amidst family can be almost oppressive. You're surrounded by people who should know you better than anyone, but you feel as if you were speaking a language they don't understand. Your concerns seem trivial to them. Your joys go unnoticed. Your questions are received with incomprehension or even discomfort. It's in these moments that Camus' philosophy can offer unexpected comfort. The reminder that the absurd of human existence includes exactly these experiences of mismatch and misunderstanding. You're not living wrong by feeling this way. You are actually living in a profoundly human way. The temptation in these moments can be in two opposite directions. Either you close yourself completely, building increasingly higher walls between you and your family, or you nullify yourself completely, suppressing your own characteristics to fit others' expectations. Camus would suggest a third way, lucid acceptance of the situation, accompanied by the decision to continue living authentically, neither isolating yourself nor denying yourself, but finding creative ways to exist fully even within the limitations of the situation. It's a kind of art of living that recognizes the constraints of reality without letting itself be completely defined by them. You can, for example, find subtle ways to express who you really are, even in an environment that doesn't seem especially receptive. It can be through small choices. The book you bring to read in moments of silence, the music you play when it's your turn to choose, the questions you ask that reveal your genuine curiosity about others, even if they don't show the same curiosity about you. These small affirmations of authenticity may not completely revolutionize family dynamics, but they can keep your own identity alive, preventing it from being completely suffocated by conformity pressure. It's also important to recognize that your family, like you, is composed of individuals who also face their own versions of existential absurd. They may also be feeling misunderstood. They may also be playing roles that don't completely correspond to who they are. They may also be navigating between the need to belong and the desire to be authentic. The difference is that perhaps they've chosen different strategies from yours to deal with these issues. Some may have opted for complete conformity, others for constant conflict, still others for superficiality as a way to avoid confronting deeper issues. Understanding this doesn't mean you should accept behaviors you consider problematic, but it can help you develop a more compassionate perspective on complex family dynamics. Each person is doing the best they can with the emotional, intellectual, and psychological resources they have available. And just as you're in constant process of growth and change, so are they, even if in less visible ways or at different rhythms from yours. The solidarity that Camus spoke about can manifest exactly in this recognition. We're all fighting against the absurd of existence. We're all trying to find meaning and connection in a universe that remains silent before our most fundamental questions. Your family, with all its limitations and idiosyncrasies, is part of this shared human condition, and perhaps there's a strange form of intimacy in recognizing this, even when direct emotional intimacy seems impossible. If you've made it this far in this reflection, if these words are somehow echoing with your own experience, perhaps you'd like to be part of a community of people who also question, who also seek, who also navigate between belonging and authenticity. It's not a commercial proposal. It's a gentle invitation for those who feel there's still much to explore about the human condition and about ways to live more consciously and compassionately. If this makes sense to you, consider subscribing. Here you don't need to pretend to be who you're not, and your questions are welcome, no matter how complex or uncomfortable they may seem. This is a journey we take together, each with our individuality, but united by the recognition that the search for understanding is in itself profoundly valuable. What Camus teaches us in the end is that we can choose how to respond to the absurd of existence. We can revolt against it destructively, we can surrender to despair, or we can accept it as an integral part of life and find ways to live fully despite it. In family relationships, this translates into the possibility of loving without total understanding, of belonging without absolute conformity, of maintaining bonds without denying your own identity. It's a form of mature love that recognizes the limits of human understanding but doesn't give up on the attempt at connection. Perhaps true family intimacy is not in the absence of distance, but in mutual acceptance that this distance exists, and in the shared decision to keep trying to get closer, even knowing we'll never get to know each other completely. It's a bit like two people walking in the same direction on parallel paths. They can see each other, they can communicate across the distance, they can share the journey without necessarily occupying the same space. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's even more honest and sustainable than the illusion of complete fusion. There's a strange dignity in accepting your own loneliness as a natural part of who you are, even when you're surrounded by people you love. It's not a bitter or resentful loneliness, but a conscious, chosen loneliness that recognizes the limits of human connection without giving up on the attempt to create meaningful bonds. It's the loneliness of someone who knows they are unique, unrepeatable, and who carries within themselves a universe that no one else can completely inhabit. And this is not a lack, it's a richness. It's what makes you someone worthy of being known, even if you're never known completely. When you return home after these family gatherings, when you're alone again with your thoughts and reflections, remember that the distance you felt was not your failure, nor theirs. It was simply the human condition manifesting itself in all its complexity. You can carry love for them and at the same time recognize that there are parts of you they may never understand completely. And that's okay. Love doesn't need to be based on total understanding to be real and valuable. Family doesn't need to be a place of complete fusion to be a place of genuine belonging. And you don't need to be completely understood to have value and dignity as a human being. The Camusian revolt applied to family life is the decision to continue being authentically yourself, to continue growing and questioning, to continue seeking your own truth, even when this creates distance in relation to those you love. It's the choice not to diminish yourself to fit into others' expectations, but also not to isolate yourself completely for not feeling understood. It's finding the delicate balance between fidelity to yourself and respect for others, between authenticity and compassion, between individuality and belonging. In the end, perhaps what matters most is recognizing that you're living a real life, with all the contradictions and complexities this implies. You're not a movie character, where all conflicts resolve in 2 hours, nor are you living a fairy tale where family is always a source of perfect understanding and unconditional support. You're living a human life, where love coexists with distance, where belonging coexists with loneliness, where connection is always imperfect, but no less valuable for that. And there's a strange beauty in this imperfection, an authenticity that can only exist when we stop trying to force reality to conform to our fantasies about how things should be.